take me back all the way to the beginning,
Yeah.
when you were first diagnosed with Crohn's disease. How did that make you feel?
So I was actually vacationing with my parents in Europe, like first time I've ever been, and I just come down with this incredible like stomach flu almost like thing, and I just get bedridden in a hotel in Paris actually.
Yeah.
And so I literally, like, my parents are throwing like every med they can at me, every over-the-counter thing, whatever. Like nothing is stopping the gut pain, and like in slavery to the restroom. Like I'm just stuck. And so eventually we flew back and like instantly hospitalized. I had majorly lost weight, like talking about like 30 pounds over that course of that procedure, and just did a bunch of procedures, and then eventually they're like, you know, they had a few different options, and it just got narrowed down to like the not fun ones, which was Crohn's disease.
Yeah. And how old were you?
So I was 12. I turned 13 in the hospital, actually.
Oh, no, that was not a fun birthday.
No, but my parents made it up for a good surprise birthday a few months later. Yeah.
That's good. And so after you were diagnosed with Crohn's, you tried a lot of different treatments. You tried to learn as much as you can about the disease. Can you tell me what sorts of things you tried?
Yeah, so, I mean, I did a lot of the traditional stuff that our doctor would prescribe. So I think, you know, you start out with some prednisone to get the inflammation under control, and then you try to switch to some maintenance drugs, so like Asacol, and then that didn't work, and then you do things like 6-MP, Roasa. I mean, pretty much like any like drug they can put like anywhere in your body from like any angle, like they'll try to get in you, and I did a lot of that. And then eventually, after even trying some experimental stuff around diets, I mentioned at this talk about DMSO, this like chemical used by horse veterinarians, and then eventually got on Remicade, which is a drug I've been on for the past 10 years, and like, you know, it works like all right, but diet is still crucial for me to be healthy.
Right, right. And earlier you were talking a little bit about an unconventional treatment that you tried. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so that unconventional treatment was a parasitic worm called pig whipworm. And the way that, I mean, they don't know too much about, first of all, they don't know too much about how autoimmune conditions work at all. So they're really out to lunch on that. But with this helminth therapy, this worm therapy, the idea is that it can like perhaps like reset or rejigger you have like an overreactive immune system.
Right.
So like, let's introduce something that it should actually react to. And so it does that, and you know, it may have worked for me. I actually, at the same time that I did this whipworm therapy, I started a new diet. But I did get significantly better. I just don't know whether it was the diet or the whipworm at this point.
Right. But I guess it just speaks to how many different things you tried and how desperate you were just to get information and get your hands on anything that could help with your symptoms.
Yeah, and this was mail ordered from Thailand, and it cost me $3,000. Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty sketch stuff. But,
how did you find it?
There's just like some company in Germany that like does some stuff to get it to you. I don't exactly know how it works, but my parents helped out a little bit, and you know, I'm willing to take that risk because like ultimately, like as I mentioned earlier, like I've got a fixed rope of treatment options, and like as I get closer to the end of that, it's my intestine that's like on the line. So like they'll have to remove sections of intestine. Like I want to try to keep that as much as possible. So like if it means taking some parasitic worms, like, you know, throw them at me.
Right, yeah, no, Crohn's is a devastating disease. So it's an autoimmune disease that basically attacks your intestines and leaves you with these horrible digestive symptoms.
Right.
So how did your journey with Crohn's lead you ultimately to founding Chronology?
Yeah, so it was all those treatment experiments that I'd done and the knowledge that I had built up along the pathway to my now pretty good health. That made me realize that, you know, I'm not alone. There's other patients that have that knowledge. But like when I was, I'm not like done by any means. Like there's plenty more treatment experiments ahead. But, you know, I have like 5 minutes with my doctor. Like I can't get through like enough information there. And I met all these other patients almost by accident at UC Berkeley. Like I just went to this documentary film screening. There was a bunch of other patients in the audience. and we just hit it off, and I just started learning from them. And once I realized like how powerful it was to be connected to a group of other patients and learn from their knowledge, I realized like, wait, how come there doesn't exist like something this on the web that allows this to scale massively to all patients? And that's why we started building Chronology.
Right. And what has user response been to Chronology so far?
Yeah, so right now we have 2,000 patients on the service, and a third of them are coming back every week. So like we have over 11,000 treatment reviews, a database full of that. So it's like this super robust, sort of like open sourced health information, right? So like prior to Chronology, if you wanted to compare some treatments side by side, you literally didn't have like a good resource. You'd like be digging through web forums. And so like we actually built the data structures around this. So you can go sort, sift by like user rating, like user health, like how long people are on these treatments, to basically just dive into a good treatment decision. And like for the most part right now, like outside of Chronology, it's like it's a black box, right? Like your doctor kind of holds the cards and you don't really know what's there. I'm trying to like open it up a little bit more.
Right, and I can imagine it must be so hard for patients to go through and Google search all the different treatments and try to compare it that way.
Well, I mean, you basically, if you do Google search like Crohn's treatment or fibromyalgia treatment, you're basically like laden with, it's either like pharma ads or it's like pharma, like unbranded pharma sites that are like trying to pose as being like neutral third parties. Or you just get these like, you'll come to like WebMD, which will give you like very like unpersonalized top-down information that's been like published. But what I wanted to do is create an experience that would allow you to talk to real patients and you can ask them questions. So what we do is, you come to our site and you start logging some information about your health, like what treatments you've tried, how your health is currently. And then we use that information to help route information to you and from you to other people. So like if I have a question about Humira, that question gets routed to other users that have taken Humira in the past. And it's just like 10 times more powerful than a web forum that's out there.
Right. So it seems like one of the major goals of Chronology is information sharing. To what extent are you also helping patients connect emotionally and just as a support group?
Yeah, so I think both of those are very symbiotic. I actually don't think you can have the information sharing without that emotional support. Because what we do is we're basically creating an ecosystem that allows people to help each other. And if we didn't do a good job at the emotional support of like, hey, these are other real patients around you with like a profile photo, with like a name and a location, then the incentive to help out these people, it's just like, it's too amorphous. It's just like, it feels like you're posting to the open web. So what we did is we actually like built these hyper-local groups. So like if you log into San Francisco, you're going to see people in San Francisco. And that creates like the opportunity for real relationships between people. Like you can actually, we have a feature that allows you to actually schedule meetups on the site with these patients. And we've scheduled 22 of them already. Yeah.
Wow.
That
so
have
people
happened in the past. Yeah.
Come
already.
and meet up.
Grab dinner, go to a bar, do a potluck in a park or whatever. Because like, our technology, I think, is like, we're trying to approach some things that you can find in the real world. And I'm not going to just dismiss the real world here, right? Like, I want you to meet people in person because there's this emotional connection that, like, as hard as we try, like, we'll be asymptotic to that online. So let's like have you meet in person.
Right. So it's kind of like Facebook for Crohn's disease patients, but then you can take it to the next level and meet and network in real life.
Yeah, some people have described it as like sort of a Facebook meets a WebMD, right? So it's like, it's health information and then it's peer-to-peer. And like, people are pretty distrusting of institutions, especially like medical institutions now, and like getting information from your peers is like a very trusted source, so we're trying to make that happen.
Yeah. And how did you get the idea to start Chronology? I mean, not everyone can just think of this and actually build it.
So like, yeah, to be honest, it was a lot of that meeting these other patients in person, that I just had the serendipity to become connected with, and just seeing that offline model and wanting to see how I could scale it online was a big thing.
And you have a background in computer programming?
Yeah, I mean, I've been programming since like age 12. My web development skills got good enough that I could actually do this right at the time where I got sick enough that I wanted to do this, and that I was connected to enough patients for it to like have a seed community. Like everything just kind of came together real nicely.
Right.
So that's why we're, at 2,000 patients now.
What's next for Chronology? Where do you see the future heading?
What I want to do, and my co-founder Will and I want to do, is take this platform that we built. We built this software that works really well for sharing information about Crohn's and colitis. There's actually not too many reasons why it should be restricted to that condition, just because, that's what we chose to do as a focus initially. So we're actually working to see how we can apply this to a bunch of other autoimmune conditions, psychological conditions, or neurodegenerative conditions, and just help, as many patients as we can. That's the goal.
Yeah, so would these be different websites, separate ones for each of the different diseases, or one main portal? Where
it's kind of indeterminate at this point. There's definitely pros and cons to each. It sounds like Chronology is probably gonna, it'll remain its own brand because that's what it's always been. But yeah, going forward, we're gonna find out.